I now call this regular meeting of the Board of Education to order at 7:00 p.m. Can you please call the roll?
Ms. Pearson?
Present.
Ms. Chavez?
Here.
Ms. McCall?
Present.
Ms. Bennett?
Here.
Mr. Carpenter?
Here.
Ms. Haley?
Here.
Ms. Stanford?
Here.
With 7 present, we have a quorum.
Thank you. We will now take a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. At the start of each board meeting, it's important to remember that the mission of the Rockford Public Schools is to collaboratively engage all students in an equitable first-class education for a changing world. Before we go any further, we'd like to thank Kim Pedersen and Aaron Hill, who are working behind the scenes to produce the board's broadcast via YouTube live stream and Comcast Channel 20. I also would like to welcome Superintendent's Student Advisory Council member Gustavo Ramirez from Auburn High School. Item 2 on the agenda is a proclamation for Principals Week, which is this week, October 19th to the 25th. The proclamation from Governor Pritzker states that, well, first of all, this week is designated as Principals Appreciation Week. It's the board's honor to publicly recognize the work that our principals do to help our students strive for success daily. Thank you to our principals. The state's proclamation for Principals Appreciation Week states as follows. Whereas school principals play an integral role in nurturing a positive, student-centered culture in elementary, middle, and high schools across the state of Illinois. And whereas school principals are responsible for attracting and retaining the best teachers and support staff to ensure that each child receives equitable educational opportunities and services to reach their potential. And whereas it is the primary responsibility of the state of Illinois to provide adequate and equitable resources for schools so that all students have access to a quality education and foundation for a successful future. And whereas the Illinois Principals Association, which represents over 6,900 educational leaders statewide, believes that educators' experiences and voices are essential to crafting effective education policy. And whereas the Illinois Principals Association is committed to developing, supporting, and advocating for innovative educational leaders through high-quality professional development, networking opportunities, and legislative advocacy. And whereas school leaders face many obstacles in supporting and educating our young people, and it is through their perseverance, passion, and hope-filled leadership that Illinois continues to produce quality, career-ready students. And whereas we must continue to encourage, support, and recognize our school principals who have a positive impact on Illinois students and the educational system in the land of Lincoln. Therefore, I, J.B. Pritzker, Governor of the State of Illinois, do hereby proclaim October 19th to the 25th, 2025 as Principals Week and October 24th, 2025 as Principals Day in Illinois to recognize principals and the Illinois Principals Association for all that they do to help our children learn and succeed. Thank you. We will now recognize and celebrate outstanding contributions. Is Ms. Stanford? Okay.
Good evening. We don't have any student or staff recognitions this month, but we are shining a spotlight on the great work happening in our schools. Tonight we're featuring Marshall Elementary. Please welcome Principal Sydney Graves. Take it away.
good. I'm going to attempt to use this microphone versus this one. Thank you so much, Board of Education, for having me this evening. It is an honor to both be here and to serve in the RPS schools, particularly in a special program where I am able to work with students and families throughout the entire district rather than just in a zone school. This is my 6th year at Marshall Elementary, and when the opportunity came to apply, it felt like coming home. I spent my own elementary years in a self-contained gifted program. At the time, we were combined with first and second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. I, believe it or not, went through quite a bit of bullying and teasing and all of the things that go along with being different than your peers. And having a place where I was able to thrive academically was a wonderful experience. It is my hope that I am able to give that back to the gifted students in our community, and to do that through empathy and understanding of some of the unique challenges that they might go through. So just Marshall Elementary in a snapshot here. We have approximately 378 students. Our low income percentage is 33.6%. Our English language learners percentage is 11.1%. We have been very pleased to see that percentage on the rise over the last few years. And our chronic absenteeism is 7%. You can see the breakdown of our demographic data to the right. Asian at 17.7%, Black at 5%, Hispanic at 19%, 2 or more races 7.4%, and white at 50.5%. Over the past 4 years, we have been in the exemplary category through ISB. As you may or may not know, that in order to be exemplary, you are in the top 10% of all schools in the state, and you can have no underperforming student groups at or below the all students group for the lowest performing 5% of schools. And I know I can't talk about this year's data, but it's looking good. All right, so we work together collaboratively to develop this theory of action. So we believe that if our staff is committed to meeting gifted best practices and nurturing the talents of all identified students through relentlessly doing the following: accelerating our curriculum, focusing on inquiry, and making time and room for both enrichment and interventions, then we will have 100% of students meet benchmarks on state and district assessments. Part of our school improvement plan, we are continuing to do many of the things that have brought us success, which would, again, be focusing on intervention and enrichment. We want to make sure that we are meeting the needs of all of the students. You may or may not be aware that Marshall and the Gifted Academy does take a very comprehensive approach to enrollment in the Academy. You can be identified as gifted in many different ways. You can be identified as being gifted in math, gifted in reading, gifted in nonverbal. And so we do have kids that may need an intervention in one of those areas and then also need enrichment in another. We do want to work on our reading stamina. That is something that we have not been exempt from with the rising technology usage. If you've been around kids much these days, they are having a harder time sitting and focusing and working on being able to attend to text. We also are focusing on writing. We want to specifically hone in on responding to text and incorporating our IAR rubrics. We do like to do a lot of work at the PLC level to vertically align our rubrics so that we can talk through the grade levels of what our expectations are and how we can support one another throughout the building. We also do use the iReady learning path in 2nd through 4th grade. We have the expectation that the students should pass 2 lessons weekly. In math, we are on our 4th year of Bridges implementation. We have found that particular curriculum to be highly successful. It fits in wonderfully with our inquiry level at above grade level based on the needs and the data of our students. Again, we'd have intervention and enrichment, and the students use the iReady learning path. So we are very fortunate that the majority of our kids do enjoy being at school. We have very, very low chronic absenteeism. They enjoy coming to school, they enjoy the day, and they look forward to coming the next day. Some of the things that we do to improve that and work on it is having a daily community meeting. We use a program called All Things EQ, which focuses on your emotional intelligence. The idea that it doesn't matter if you're the smartest person in the room, if you have a difficult time getting along with others, you're not going to be as successful in life as you'd like to. We also work on specific gifted focus areas, things like anxiety and perfectionism that we notice are characteristics of the majority of gifted students. We do have a daily inquiry block. There's a lot of student choice. Last year, on this particular slide, it says create a school-wide inquiry unit. That actually came to fruition last year. All of the students were surveyed. They were able to come up with topics that they were interested in learning about, and then the teachers chose topics that they would be interested in teaching, and then kids got to go in and select, again, the topic that they'd like to learn about for the week. And every day the kids would rotate teachers and they would get to attend and learn about the topic of their choice. It was amazing. We just met as a leadership team and we talked about perhaps adding in a second week so students would have an additional opportunity and an additional chance to choose another topic that they'd like to learn about. I would encourage anyone, reach out to me if you're interested in coming during Inquiry Week. It's really neat to see. We do several, including the Inquiry Week, we have a lot of mixed grade level community building activities. I do a monthly principal advisory committee where students get to come and give me their thoughts and feedback and things that they think that that we can do as a school community to improve. We also do a multi-age fun Friday. It runs similar to the way Inquiry goes, where all of the teachers choose something that is fun, and then the kids get to select where they would like to go for that Friday. We do that once a trimester. Again, we find that mixing up the grade levels, giving them the opportunity to learn and meet and work with most of the staff creates a very strong community. We are currently working on leveling up our inquiry. We would like to make sure that in all of our units, we're really focused on higher level thinking versus in some areas we're doing just a little bit of just research. Not that there's anything wrong with research, but we want to make sure that we have that higher level thinking embedded. All right, so in closing, the Gifted Academy continues to demonstrate excellence in meeting the unique needs of advanced learners, earning an exemplary designation for its high standards of academic achievement and student growth. Our instructional approach blends enrichment, intervention, and acceleration to ensure every student is both challenged and supported. Through a rich menu of inquiry-based learning experiences, we cultivate intellectual curiosity, creativity, and critical thinking across all grade levels. Targeted interventions provide personalized support to address individual learning goals, while our accelerated curriculum allows students to explore complex concepts deeply and at an advanced pace. By focusing a learning culture grounded in exploration, high expectations, and meaningful engagement, the Gifted Academy prepares students for not only academic success, but also for thoughtful, impactful contributions beyond the classroom. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions? Ms. Pearson?
I emailed my question, so I'm just waiting for a follow-up. Thank you very much for a really nice presentation. Thank you for the work you do and serving as principal.
Thank you.
Ms. McCall?
Good evening. Thank you for your presentation as well. I just had a couple of questions. As far as a couple of slides back, number 192, it's page number on the bottom, slide 192. You were mentioning some of the interventions and things that were utilized to, help your students. You referenced some interventions for anxiety and perfectionism. Mm-hmm. And I was just wondering, are those, number one, how successful are they? And then number two, is that something that can be replicated throughout the district? I'm aware of some students who have, faced those specific type of anxieties as well, but they're not in the gifted program. So how is that, is that something that we can, replicate throughout the district? So.
I would say, and I am obviously not a medical professional, but I would say that my experience shows that things like anxiety and perfectionism are things that are more managed versus being cured. Mm-hmm. People typically, it's part of their personality, part of their psyche. So we work, I would like to say the majority of it is the work of my staff, knowing their students very, very deeply. All of the teachers that work in the Gifted Academy do have to take specialized coursework, and a lot of it does circle around the idea of social emotional learning. But that has given them the ability and the tools to be able to work with students that are struggling with things like that. So I would say maybe not replicated specifically for gifted learners, but there's definitely opportunities for professional development for teachers that are out there that we could, as a district, look into, because the teacher is the person with those kids the majority of the week. They are on the front line doing the really, really hard work, and they're the ones that the kids look forward to seeing. They're the ones that, hold them up and cheer for them, and also coach them when they're having those moments where they think, I can't do this. This is too hard, or I can't even get started. And breaking things into, smaller pieces, and talking about, like, our motto for today, or actually for the week, is talking about having positive self-talk and saying things like, if I tell myself that math is hard, and I say that to myself every day, then math is going to be hard. But if one of the things I tell myself every day is that I can do hard things, then I start to believe that. And so as a school, we do go over many of those lessons to try to channel their thinking in more positive, productive ways.
Okay, thank you. And my second question or comment, last week I was able to participate in the Academic Expo, and I noted, when I was there, I noticed that there were students from Marshall School. So how did that come about? Like, was that part of your incentive day? Like, you guys, this group can go to the, Academic Expo, because it's, for high school students, and I want to know, how did that come about that you guys were selected and able to participate in such a meaningful day?
I was a little bit of a rebel, and I chose the College and Career Department as my Standards of Service partner last year, and it was something that we were trying to see if it was something that, would work throughout the district. I would say it was amazing. Mm-hmm. Kids loved it. Teachers loved it. I think the initial feedback is that it's going to be very hard to roll up or to replicate that. So we do in-house, we always do a career day, and we typically have about 26 volunteers. And another partnership that I had through that Standards of Service, that department helped us locate some people out in the community that would come and present. Students were able to choose, depends on the year, but 3 to 5 careers that they go and listen to and interact with at the school. And so I think moving forward, as much as I would love to continue going to the expo, I don't know that that was something that's going to be able to be rolled up. So we're going to be looking at incorporating more of those careers and expanding our own career day.
Okay. No, yeah, like I said, I'm very hands-on, so I was right there with the students and stuff and listening to their questions and things, and they were very thoughtful questions as well. I was just kind of curious as how that they was able to participate in that.
I was just thinking outside of the box, and I shocked everyone when I picked them as my partners.
Okay.
We had a great day, though. I appreciate them allowing us to come.
Okay. And that's it. It's a great program. My son is a graduate he's starting in 3rd grade and finished out through our high school at the gifted program. So keep up the good work. And if there's something that you think that is shareable and manageable for the entire district as to be able to replicate for those that are non-gifted, such as the anxiety and the perfectionism, that's some stuff that can be helped with students that take AP classes and students that's in their CAPA programs and things like that. I think that's a normal thing now as far as our population of students. So just wanted to keep in mind that, if you got something that's working good, share it with the rest of the district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, go ahead, Mr. Carpenter.
Thank you. Can you remind us and everybody in the community, I guess, how students are admitted to the gifted program?
Sure. So in kindergarten, we do district-wide screening with a test called the Naglieri. It is a nonverbal intelligence test that is mostly things like analogies and puzzles and things that you don't need to have any instruction in order to do well. The idea is that we don't want to limit anyone based on, how their background or what sort of experiences they've had prior to taking the Naglieri. We do that in every single kindergarten classroom throughout the district. And then we use a rubric where we are looking at, again, you can qualify based on, I'm going to say reading, but they don't actually have to read, but reading potential ability and math potential ability, their ability to their nonverbal thinking skills, and then we offer seats. And then if you either did not get offered a seat in kindergarten, you can come to one of 4 Saturday testing events, and you can take the test called the COGAT, and that gives you a second opportunity to test into the Gifted Academy. That is also available to all students in 1st through 10th grade. So if you are new to Rockford, or if you have perhaps previously chosen a private school and you would like to, and you think the Gifted Academy would be a good fit, you can come on any of those testing days to take the COGAT, and then you're able to do that once a year. Again, you're able to be admitted on any one of those 3 subcategories. We do not expect the giftedness across the board. And then if you still, if that still you weren't able to qualify, and your family feels very strongly that this is something that we need to take a closer look at, then you can submit a review packet. And then we're able to look at work samples and in addition to achievement testing to make a determination.
Okay, thank you. So every kindergartner in RPS takes the Naglieri and is eligible to be admitted then afterwards?
Correct.
Thank you. Can you also, I was trying to do the math on how many strands each grade has at Marshall.
We have 1st through 4th grade, and there's 4 strands at each grade level, so 16 classrooms.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation, too.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Ms. Pearson?
Yes, thank you. I just have a quick question. What is the percentage of entries as a result of the review packet?
I do not manage our eligibility portion, so I wouldn't be able to give you an accurate answer to that.
So when I get the follow-up from the email that I sent, can you send that as well?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
that's all for us for tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Stanford. Moving on to agenda item number 3 is petitions and communications, where we invite the public to make comments. Slurs, profanity, and harassment will not be tolerated. Should any speaker use unacceptable language, they would be directed to immediately surrender the remainder of their speaking time and be restricted from public comment in the future. The board will not respond to comments at this time. If it is appropriate, you will be contacted in a timely manner by staff. Each speaker will be allowed no more than 3 minutes to address the board. It is not appropriate to discuss matters that would otherwise be confidential in these open meetings. If you look to your left, there are 2 digital clocks. One shows the total time for public comments and one shows the time for each speaker. We thank you for your cooperation with our guidelines. Our first speaker is Kathy Matheson, followed by Craig Corcoran.
Hello, is that on? Okay. Thank you, members of the board. My name is Kathy Madison. I serve on the education team of Eliminate Racism 815. We're here tonight to discuss the foundational promise of public education, the promise of literacy. For too many children in RPS 205, that promise remains unfulfilled. Our third major goal as a committee is focused entirely on this issue, that all third grade students in RPS become proficient in reading. The data is sobering and it is a call to action. As you search for our next superintendent, we urge you to hire a leader who views third grade literacy not as an aspiration, but as an urgent systemic mandate. We need a superintendent who brings literacy expertise, someone deeply knowledgeable about the evidence-based science of reading, instruction, particularly for early learners, and who can articulate a clear, actionable vision to reach proficiency. This expertise must be paired with equitable resource allocation. The new superintendent must be an expert in funding models that ensure schools with the greatest needs and the most significant literacy gaps receive the intensive, targeted support, training, and resources required to succeed. Furthermore, we're seeking a superintendent who is data-driven decision maker, skilled in using disaggregated data, not only to identify disparities, but also to inform and adjust strategy immediately. This is about accountability and results. And this must all be grounded in culturally responsive leadership that affirms our students' identities, recognizing that a student's culture and language are assets, not obstacles to learning. Our committee is prepared to be your collaborative partner. Our work involves researching districts that have experienced significant growth in Black student achievement, focusing on strategic investments in high-quality instructional materials. We aim to share that research with you and the new administration. Still, we need a leader who is transparent and acceptable, someone who views our committee not as critics, but committed stakeholders ready to roll up our sleeves. And finally, we need a superintendent who sees the student as a whole child. So board members, as you move into the interview process, what is one non-negotiable step your board will take to ensure our next superintendent has a proven quantifiable track record of successfully increasing literacy rates for students of color? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And then Craig Corcoran.
Hello, Craig Corcoran from Guilford. Thanks for having Ms. Graves here. It's wonderful to see all the bright spots in our district. I think there's many of them, and hopefully that more of the community can come in RPS and demonstrate those. I'm here to just talk about the engineering program that I'm a part of at Guilford and the community as a whole in RPS. So a lot of times I feel like I'm a lone island complaining or bragging, so I kind of wanted to go out on a limb and get some data from our engineering students throughout the district to find out what is happening in their mindset. So I can say from my point of view, and a lot of times I'm just talking to like-minded people, so I'm trying to reach out to find out what's else going on. So I want to congratulate you on what appears to be a successful implosion of the Production Academy engineering program. My data shows that of all of the students that I got to survey in the engineering program, 30% of them have no idea what the quad is. From that, I asked them about going to the quad, and I have about 17% are super excited, so that's great. I have about 22% that they don't really care where an engineering program is, they're taking it anyways. I have another 30% that say, I'm not going to the quad. I have 9% of attrition, and that's kind of common anyways. And then I have a split in the middle that they're just not sure what to do because they're not aware of what the CCEC quad is and how it operates. So in running all my numbers through the populations that we've had, last year we had in all in the engineering program just over 500 students in the engineering program throughout the 5 high schools. This year we're around 430-ish, so we had about a 30% reduction. If you look at that again, the next 30% reduction for the next school year, we come down to about 330-something students, and if half of those want to go to the CCEC, you have filled it. You have won. So you can fill the CCEC with the engineering program, and you've reduced the quantity of load that has to be in the home schools. So I applaud you. What I feel a little sad about is why weren't our students or the teachers involved in it incorporated into some of these decisions? Other communities within our state line area here run double block programs for their engineering programs. So the P1 class runs first semester, so it's a 2-hour class. So if you're going to go to the CCEC, why don't you do a 2-hour class and then you get your P1 out of the way? The second semester you run the P2 program, and now the kid is in a P3 and he has the opportunity to take a capstone class. And it would have been nice if some of those could have been thought through. Hopefully those opportunities still exist. So if we're not being successful in our high schools with our engineering program or whatever programs, I think we need to maybe look internally and find out what's going on internal. Is it the building? Is it the hiring? Is it the salary? What's happening? Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item 5, performance and monitoring. Item 5 is report and action on items that proceeded through the Performance and Monitoring Committee. I believe that item 5A is the school-based health center. The board can now, with regard to that item, the board can now provide guidance to administration regarding whether they wish to proceed with requests for proposals or move forward with Miles Square as the provider and administrator of the school-based health center. Is there any discussion on that issue? You recall that we had the discussion of the committee of the whole on this topic. Ms. Pearson?
Yes, so would the proposals delay anything? And what would that delay look like?
Sure. I think we did discuss that, but if you would like to come forward to kind of address that, that would be great.
So I'm not familiar with how long it would be. I mean, it's going to be a process. I'm going to be honest. It's going to be a process. We're looking at starting slow because we want to do it right, correctly. You know, we want to ensure that we're moving this forward better, like a bigger, better, you know, the best we can. So I don't necessarily think it would delay, other than possibly getting the grant funding and the startup ahead of time. So I guess actually my answer would be yes. I'm sorry. I was caught off guard. I wasn't ready to speak. One of the main problems with funding the school-based health center is applying for the grants and getting that money up front. So the sooner we can identify somebody to take that spot and take on those grants, they can start asking for that money and getting it there. If we do a request for proposal, I would anticipate it would delay it a little bit. Whether or not that's life-changing, I can't answer.
Ms. Stanford?
The only issue I have with this is the $400,000 price tag for the startup. Mm-hmm. Do you think if, no matter who we get, we're still going to have that price tag for the startup?
From my understanding, a lot of that comes from the availability of the grant money prior to. I believe I shared with Mr. Carpenter a document where Miles Square had kind of laid out a 3-year plan. And I do know that you know, it would just depend. You know, if we got a big, you know, university hospital to come in there, would they have the money? I don't know, because nobody has reached out and offered any other guidance for that.
So Miles Square is not, I mean, if we were to ask for more bids, they're not going to just say, okay, forget it. I mean, they'd
Correct.
still be in the running, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Chavez.
I don't know if I missed this information, but is there a deadline to these? When are the deadline to these grants, or what is that timeline for that?
I don't know the answer to that question. I'm not in grant writing. I wish I did understand that more. I believe that normally, last year they told us that like the cutoff was around September. So I don't know the answer for the grants. I'm sorry.
So are we, okay, so if the cutoff was September, are we then looking for something for 2027?
They are looking at other opportunities as well. So, you know, it's a year-long process. They are looking at other opportunities for grants.
Okay.
I'm sorry I couldn't give you more information on that. I really don't understand how they use them.
And when you say, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Can you provide us that information? Can you go back to a source?
I provided a 3-year plan from you that talks about how they achieve their money, how it becomes self-sufficient through insurance and reimbursement, through federal grant money. The 400 ask up starter is a soft ask. I will say that. It's a soft ask.
Sorry, Ms. Pearson.
No worries. So I support request for proposal.
Thank you. And can I just ask, when you said they, you used that you're referring to they, how they, I think, seek grants. Is that what you're referring to? And when you said they, were you referring to Miles Square in particular? Or
I would
just
anticipate
whoever?
anybody that's coming in there is going to be applying for grants for funding.
Okay.
Yes.
And that would be, like, would the anticipation be we would enter a contract with the provider, and then the provider would be the ones that would be seeking the grants?
Yes.
One thing, if I could just interject, certainly it's always good to go out for proposal, and I do think the concern I think we have is that this is a need that the community has been aware of for a long time, and if we read F on the executive summary, it is very clear that all of the local providers are aware of this and are supportive of this. So I think our rationale for going this direction is not because we don't believe in the importance of going out to a larger bid, but in a sense, I think the other community health providers have largely supported this particular proposal, at least. So we don't expect a huge response to an RFP, more than likely. However, it is always our prerogative to go through another step and see what's out there. But I think what the presentation covered last week is that we think that is a fairly low likelihood that we would receive other responses. Obviously, Crusader would have been the most likely, and they were the ones that walked away from the partnership. So I just wanted to point that risk out, that we could go to RFP and may end up back, I think are likely, according to Ronnie's recommendation, back where we started from.
So I guess what, procedurally what we'll need to do is have a motion to either move forward with Miles Square or a motion to move forward with an RFP. So someone wants to make a motion, that would be a good time to do that. This would be a good time to do that.
Before we do that, can we have a little bit more of a discussion?
Sure.
So, hindsight, we probably should have had more of a discussion at the committee of the whole. There was a lot going on at the committee of the whole that created enough distractions. Nonetheless, we may very well end up in the same place, but I don't know how much of an effort did we. I guess the question is, how much effort did we put into the possibility of receiving proposals, or did we?
I think, well, you talked about serving on the board, the Community Health Board, as I recall.
So this is talked about widely among health providers. I mean, so the Rockford Regional Health Council is all about fixing the health disparities, finding our students access to primary care, and directing our families on how to, everything, social, emotional, mental, physical health, dental health, visual health. Not one time in any of those meetings was I approached by anybody other than LP Johnson, Miles Square. They've actually been reaching out for a couple years, trying to develop a program to help, their campus is located right next to Lincoln. So we've been in the works of trying to help our students at Lincoln and East and Johnson find primary care providers that are local and easy for them to get into. So we've had kind of a working relationship. And so when Crusader made their announcement that they were leaving, immediately reached out. I did talk to I talked to Winnebago County Health Department to ask them for their guidance, just knowing what we did, and brought it internally and discussed, and then really meeting with Miles Square. They answered more questions for me. They have successful clinics in Cook County. When they came and toured our spot, they were amazed at the facility. They were talking about mental health and social emotional health and bringing in community partners. I mean, they were spot on for everything that we wanted to hear, or that I wanted to hear, and my department wants to hear when we're talking about taking care of a whole child. If we're talking about providers, if we just lay it out right now, Rockford struggles finding providers. They have an endless supply of providers coming through the UIC College of Medicine to have a provider. When Crusader was there, sometimes they were only open 3 days a week because they didn't have providers. So those are things that are not just confined to, all of the health systems. Our clinics are closing. I can't find a primary health care provider. So that's why I, in my capacity, leaned into them to figure out what Miles Square could be, and every response that they've ever given and every idea that they've shown has shown that they are committed to our community. They have the plan in place. They're already state accredited. We're not going to find that locally right now with anybody other than Crusader.
So to Ms. Stanford's point of the price tag, so we have, the price tag is no doubt the fact that the limited providers, so we're at a disadvantage per se if there's no other providers interested, which I'm sure contributes to the price tag.
The price tag was to replace the material, the exam tables, the actual furniture and equipment in the clinic. Crusader Clinic took everything with them. So we have to replace, the furniture, the exam tables, the blood pressure cuffs, all of that. It was also for the first year, I believe, and it's outlined in that document, for salaries until they start creating a revenue.
Did you have something, Ms. Bennett?
I just wanted to, sorry, yes, I did. I just wanted to add that in case anybody didn't get a chance to look, you can go on their website and see their different facilities that they have, the 4 different ones that are the school-based clinics that are fully operational, and them being a FQHC, they are able to have different funding and opportunities that maybe different organizations cannot. They also work with underinsured or uninsured individuals, so our families that might be their situation, they can assist them in getting insurance. Like, they do so many more community-based things that I think would be very helpful to us as a school system, and so I would be in support in moving forward. We've already been without this service for a bit of time now, so I think through Ms. Sturm asking month by month by month who was interested, she inadvertently kind of did an RFQ with all of the interested parties, and nobody was willing. It's a large task, right, to do, and nobody stepped up to the plate to do it, and so I feel that we have followed, in theory, process. You've outlined that very clearly, and so I'd be in favor of moving forward.
With Miles Square?
Yes.
Ms. Pearson?
Is there a reason why Mile Square didn't come and do a presentation?
I don't know if they were asked to do that, but I would did you have any thoughts on that?
So that, that's probably on my fault. No, I did not ask them to come. Again, we started this process and had a couple different directives given. So they would gladly come and give you a wonderful, because we've met with everybody in the, all the way up to the top. And so I know that they would absolutely love to come and speak if that was asked of them.
And are we signing a contract this evening?
No, we're just, so what they asked for, what proposed this is they were looking for grant funding. And so for that grant funding, they had to have a document from us saying that we were considering them to come in.
So what I would recommend is that if the board determines that you are open to a partnership with this particular provider, let's have them come in and make a more formal proposal with numbers. And or today we would make the decision to pause and go out to RFQ. And so that is why we didn't invite them here, is because the board may very well have said, gosh, we would rather see what all of the options are, and we would prefer to give the board that opportunity to either work with this one provider, see what their offer is, and you still will have the chance to vote that up or down, correct, Ms. Goldsmith?
Correct. And I just wanted to note that as Ms. Sturm was navigating this, I did provide her guidance that the board must provide direction as to whether they wish to have an RFP or proceed with one provider. I did confirm that there is no statutory requirement that we bid this out. It is more of a business determination. It was my guidance to her that she should seek some direction from the board before moving forward with Miles Square. So I am part of the reason why she probably did not invite them in the first instance, because she wanted to get the preliminary direction.
That makes sense. So to be clear, and thank you, Superintendent Jarrett, that is a very valid point in terms of a contract. So because it could easily be perceived that this is what it is, right? So this is more than of a informal intent, correct? Okay, well, I'm all for an informal intent. So thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. But Miles Square do they want a vote that we want to move forward, or I don't know, I guess.
Oh, no, they'll be happy to come and present.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so let's try and do that as soon as we can. All right, thank you. All right, anybody else have anything else on that?
I'm even open for a special meeting.
Okay, great. All right, thank you all. Thank you, Ms. Sturm. Moving on to the consent agenda for Performance and Monitoring Committee. May I have a motion and a second to approve the items listed in section 6? Ms. Haley.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Stanford. Are there any consent items in section 6 that board members wish to have pulled for separate consideration? Ms. Stanford.
Item O.
Thank you. Are there any other items? Consent item O has been pulled for separate consideration. Can we, please call the roll on the items that have not been pulled for separate consideration?
Ms. Chavez?
Yes.
Ms. McCall?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Ms. Haley?
Yes.
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
Ms. Pearson?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Consent item O was pulled for separate consideration. Is there any discussion on consent item O? Seeing none, would you please call the roll for consent item O?
Ms. McCall?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Ms. Haley?
Yes.
Ms. Stanford?
Abstain?
Ms. Pearson?
Yes.
Ms. Chavez?
Yes.
The motion passes with 6 yeses, 1 abstain.
Thank you. We are now moving on to agenda item 7, Planning and Development Committee action on items that proceeded through the Planning and Development Committee. Item 7A, is there a motion and second to approve? Item 7A, the memorandum of agreement between the Board of Education of the Rockford Public Schools and Strike Academy.
So moved.
Second?
Is there any discussion? Would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Ms. Haley?
Yes.
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
Ms. Pearson?
Yes.
Ms. Chavez?
Yes.
Ms. McCall?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Is there a motion and a second to approve item 7B, resolution calling a public hearing concerning the intent of the board to sell working cash fund bonds?
So moved.
Second?
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Ms. Haley?
Yes.
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
Ms. Pearson?
Yes.
Ms. Chavez?
Yes.
Ms. McCall?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Moving on to item 7C, is there a motion and second to approve item 7C, the resolution declaring the intention to issue working cash fund bonds?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Haley?
Yes.
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
Ms. Pearson?
Yes.
Ms. Chavez?
Yes.
Ms. McCall?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Moving on to 7D, is there a motion and a second to approve item 7D, interest transfer from working cash fund to capital projects fund?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, can you please call the roll?
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
Ms. Pearson?
Yes.
Ms. Chavez?
Yes.
Ms. McCall?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Ms. Haley?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 8, planning and development consent portion of the meeting. May I have a motion and a second to approve the items in section 8?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any consent items in section 8 that board members would wish to have pulled for separate consideration? Seeing none, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Pearson?
Yes.
Ms. Chavez?
Yes.
Ms. McCall?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Ms. Haley?
Yes.
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Moving on to item 9, the governance consent portion of our meeting. May I have a motion and a second to approve the items listed in section 9?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any consent items in section 9 that board members wish to have pulled for separate consideration? Seeing none, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Chavez?
Yes.
Ms. McCall?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Ms. Haley?
Yes.
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
Ms. Pearson?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 10, the closed session consent agenda, including 10A, workers' compensation settlement agreement for DS, 10B, appointment of Laura Gray as 10-month assistant principal assigned to Jefferson High School, 10C, HR organizational report. May I have a motion and a second to approve the items in section 10, closed session consent?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any closed session consent items that board members wish to have pulled for separate consideration? Seeing none, would you please call the roll?
Ms. McCall?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Ms. Haley?
Yes.
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
Ms. Pearson?
Yes.
Ms. Chavez?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Moving on to item 11, student discipline, suspension, appeals, and expulsions. Item 11A, student B0001X-26 would be expelled for the remainder of the 2025-26 school year through the entire 2026-27 school year. 11B is student H0004X-26, who would be expelled for 2 calendar years from the date of board action, so from October 21st, 2025 to October 20th, 2027. Item 11C is student H0011X-26. That expulsion would be held in abeyance contingent upon an expulsion in abeyance agreement for the remainder of the 2025-26 school year. Okay, sorry about that. Thank you. Item 11D, student P0008X-26 would be expelled for the remainder of the 2025-26 school year through the first semester of the 2026-27 school year. May I have a motion and a second to approve the items in section 11, student expulsions and suspension appeals?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any items that board members wish to have pulled for separate consideration? Seeing none, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Ms. Haley?
Yes.
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
Ms. Pearson?
Yes.
Ms. Chavez?
Yes.
Ms. McCall?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Agenda item 12 is closed session consent item, student discipline, EIAs. May I have a motion and a second to approve the items in section 12, closed session consent items, student discipline, EIAs?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Are there any items that board members wish to have pulled for separate consideration? Ms. Bennett.
Item N, H20-26, as well as AA P3-26.
Thank you. Are there any others? All right. Would you please call the roll for the items that have not been pulled, which were items N and AA? So all the others.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Ms. Haley?
Yes.
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
Ms. Pearson?
Yes.
Ms. Chavez?
Yes.
Ms. McCall?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Moving on to the items that were pulled, starting with consent item N, has been pulled for separate consideration. Would you please call the roll for consent item N?
Ms. Haley?
Yes.
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
Ms. Pearson?
Yes.
Ms. Chavez?
Yes.
Ms. McCall?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
No.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
The motion passes with 6 yeses, 1 no.
And moving on to consent item AA, which was pulled for separate consideration. Would you please call the roll?
Ms. Stanford?
Yes.
Ms. Pearson?
Yes.
Ms. Chavez?
Yes.
Ms. McCall?
Yes.
Ms. Bennett?
No.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Ms. Haley?
Yes.
The motion passes with 6 yeses, 1 no.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is superintendent report. Dr. Jarrett?
I do have 3 items that we're going to share, and while Christina Miller comes up to give her presentation, we'll also have a quick update on the expansion of the Conklin IB program from Mrs. Brenner, and Gustavo is going to close us out with his remarks as our student advisory committee member. And just a quick background while we're pulling the slide deck up. The state of Illinois historically has looked at student achievement from the perspective of how many students are performing at the 70th percentile. So when we talk about meeting or exceeding standards, we're really, if we say 20% of the students are meeting state standards, what that means is 20% of the students are at the 70th percentile. It's a little different depending on grade level, or if we're talking about math, or whether we're talking about reading, but approximately that's where the standard is. It is the highest standard in the country. Illinois made the decision to change that measurement to how many students are at the 50th percentile. And there's a lot of nuance to that, which is why Christina Miller is here to give us some of the details behind that. But the gist of this is how we interpret scores coming up next month in the month of November, and we're going to spend a whole bunch of time talking about how our schools performed, isn't going to be an apples to apples comparison to last year or going back for quite a while. So we thought before the new scores came out, we would use last year's scores as a way to kind of explain those changes. So next month, that our next 2 meetings, we can just talk about how our students did. So with that, Ms. Miller, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. So as Dr. Jarrett explained, our new summative designation and our 2025 data will be released in a couple weeks in November. And so before we hit that embargo release of data, I wanted to review with you the new cut scores that the state has created for proficiency so that we can look at our old data and see what that would have looked like with our 2024 data before we are looking at our growth from 24 to 25. So this slide is showing you high level what we'll be talking about in the presentation here, but bullet point number 1 is the most important, that our score numbers that are the dedicated cutoffs for each category of proficiency for 3rd through 8th grade on IER for both math and ELA, our 5th and 8th grade science assessment, and our 9th, 10th, and 11th grade ACT, all of those cut scores have changed so that they are redefining what it means to be proficient and what the cut scores are for those. You'll also see on the next slide that there are only 4 performance levels now, that they are going to be the same across all assessments and all grades. And that then means that the cut scores will not be the same for every single test across every single grade. It used to be 750 across the board, which is now not the same. Our ACT, which this was our first year taking ACT last year, we took SAT prior. ACT will use a composite of reading, English, and writing to make the ELA score when we get to that. Some things that didn't change is the amount of students that need to be proficient in order to be considered hitting our progress on the state report card. That did not change. So even though the cut score to be proficient has changed, what we need and what percentage of students to be proficient has not changed. How growth is calculated has not changed. We're still looking at how a student performed before and how they have grown and their raw score from year to year, and how this affects IEPs has not changed. A student will still be eligible for IEP regardless of what those cut scores are. This is a visual for what that information is. You can see the previous cut scores IAR had 5 categories, and you can see every single assessment had different names and colors of what they considered proficient. And now the new system across the state, there are the same 4 of below proficient, approaching proficient, proficient, and above proficient across all assessments. The why behind these changes started from a goal from our state superintendent, Dr. Tony Sanders, in order to right-size our proficiency cut scores to more equitably compare our students' proficiency to the rest of the nation. You can see on this graph for the NAEP standards that Illinois was the top right most rigorous, as Dr. Jarrett talked about before we started. This means that we had students that were taking our assessments and were not considered proficient by our standards, but if they moved just north of the border into Wisconsin, they were considered proficient with the exact same score. So this right-sizing team that Dr. Sanders created to identify our new cut scores was so that we could be more equitable to our neighboring states, that we meant the same when we talked about proficiency.
Real quick, NAEP is the National Assessment for Educational Progress. It is an international, sorry, that buzzword bingo there. It is an international comparison and a state-to-state comparison. So it is an apples-to-apples comparison. So just so everyone knows what NAEP is. It is not our state test. It's a test that a small sample of students from each state across the country take, a representative small sample, and then that determines how our country is doing and how we compare to other states. So that's what NAEP is.
And I look forward to, as we have these new cut scores, NAEP will show us once we have those results where we land across that. But we're predicting that we're going to be closer to a little north of 50%. We'll still be higher than the 50th percentile, probably more like 60th across the states. These next slides, I'm not going to go into detail on every single one, but these are for your reference. If you would like to look at the changes of each of those cut scores across grades in each test, you can see that it used to be in that center green proficiency, it was 750, and now you can see the changes and how many points changed at each grade level. And same with math. Science, I want to pause for a second to show that this was not a watering down of standards or lowering the bar. They really did take time to analyze what it meant to be proficient, and you will see that in the science that they raised the cut score by 13 points. It was 799, and they moved it up to 812. For ACT, reminder, there is no change on this because SAT is what we took prior. So this is them releasing what it meant to be proficient on our new assessment of ACT. And again, this will be the first time we have ACT for 11th, but it's the first time our 9th and 10th graders are also required by the state to take a pre-ACT. ECRA has done lots of research across the nation on what this means for comparison of the national percentile. And I just want to draw attention to, even though the state did a great job in trying to right size, there is still some discrepancy of what this translates to how a student needs to perform. So I'm going to show the third grade math, that's that blue line. You have to be at the 55th percentile in order to be proficient in third grade math, but the same student would then have to outgrow their peers and be part of the 68th percentile in 8th grade math to still be considered proficient. So although this is a step in the right direction, it's not consistent across, although ELA is a little bit more normed at closer to the 50th percentile in order to be considered proficient. And this slide just gives you a little bit more details about what all of those line graphs were. So the state has given a predictor. Again, this is still embargoed until November, but they did provide this information of this is what they are predicting this will look like on 2025 data. And you can see the size of impact it will have. And so for RPS, we did a 2024 theoretical impact on the light color is what we had. So you can see in third grade ELA, last year we announced 18%, and with the same percentile, I think that looks at like 24, 25, what is it? 25%. And then for math, we released 17% were proficient in third grade math. And with these new cut scores, that would have been 29%. So, to show you what kind of impact this had in our data from 2024. And again, science, with those new cut scores being more rigorous, we would have seen a drop by about 10, 11% in our data. So in short, what does that translate to? It means our students that were in the high threes in that approaching proficiency on IAR are now proficient, and our students that were in the low green proficiency in science are now considered approaching proficient. And now I'm just going to very briefly show you with our 2024 data how this would have impacted various schools. So we have some schools that this had a large impact, meaning that they had a lot of students in that, right on that bubble of a high 3 or a low proficient. So you can see Cherry Valley, this would have had a huge impact on them, as well as Rolling Green. And then Ellis is an average impact that we've seen across our district, as well as RISA, that this was an average impact that we saw on the 2024. And Flynn was a small impact on their data, not a whole lot of change, as well as Constance Lane. So what this means for the future is in a couple of weeks when we do our release of our 2025 data, when the embargo is lifted and we look at our 2025 assessment data, we will compare to 2024 new cut scores so we can truly see what was the growth or lack of growth comparatively with new cut scores. But per ISB's guidance, they would like us to only do that this year and start treating 2025 as our baseline data. So we will continue to follow ISB's guidance in that. And this is a reminder that this is just phase 1 of the change. The entire state report card will be changing this year, and we will provide you that information once it's released later this winter.
Ms. Perry and I did offer the opportunity to sit down one-on-one. If anyone would like to take us up on that, that offer still stands. We'd be happy to sit down, and if you have more detailed questions or want to, because this is obviously, there's a lot of statistics involved in this and a lot of details. So we are, of course, willing to schedule time to answer more detailed questions, but I do think Ms. Perry would be willing to answer questions tonight if there are any quick ones.
I don't have any questions tonight, but I will schedule.
Can you tell us how long was ISB working on these changes? Do you know?
They started the process over a year ago. There was an entire team of educators. In fact, we had a couple of people from RPS that were in the initial, we had a couple of teachers that were a part of the initial surveying of what does it really mean to be proficient on the IAR at the elementary level. So they had stakeholders involved in what does that really look at and the standards. And then they worked across a lot of statistical research. ECRA is one of those examples of, they had a lot of stakeholders involved, and it was quite a long process, as well as they did a lot of previewing as well. I went to a couple of those sessions for a lot of the questions that they've put a lot of thought into this. So.
Thank you. And then will this have any effect on school designations, or?
It's going to have quite of an impact on the designations, yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perry. And moving forward, I would like Ms. Brenner to come up and share just a quick update on what's coming up next at our IB school at Conklin. There's a pretty significant construction project going on. We've moved up some grade levels, but we're getting close to needing to inform you about what our preliminary thoughts are, at least about where we would be hosting students that would roll up to high school. So, and that's only a few short years away. So with that, Mrs. Brenner, the floor is yours.
Yep. Hi, good evening, Board of Education. Thank you for taking a few minutes at the end to discuss our update for the program. Mr. Smith, the building principal, and Maren Reed, who's our IB coordinator, will be coming in December. They will be one of the spotlight schools, so they'll be joining you guys once our summative designation data is really released, and to give an update outside of my brief update this evening. And so we, just for filling the board in on some past information, because not everybody was on the board when initially it was approved to implement IB within RPS, we've kind of been on a multi-year plan. So previously, where we were in the past, we had kindergarten through 6th grade. At that time, we were a candidate school. IB requires that you have to submit to become fully authorized, that you have to first be admitted to be a candidate school. The IB coordinator, myself, Mr. Smith, worked really closely. We had an IB representative that was a consultant that helps you along the way to ensure you're in compliance with what IB as the World Organization requires. We did a lot of training for staff. It's required for the school leader, the IB coordinator, and all the teachers to be certified, irregardless if you're an elementary, middle school, or high school teacher. Then obviously I transitioned into this role, and Mr. Smith took over the building. And so we continued with a lot of the systems and structures and PD that we had in place. The staff have an MOU agreement with the union outside of the teacher contract, because there is more requirement for teacher collaboration, designing instructional plans, going to required training. Currently, right now, we're servicing students kindergarten through 7th grade. We have some portables currently as the big facilities renovations are underway, which are really exciting. If you want to come and stop by, let me know and we can set that up just to initially see. The school, our exciting news that I put in a prior board update, was fully authorized as a primary years program school. For IB, in a few slides, you'll see there's multiple levels based on the level of students served. This October, we'll be submitting for the middle years program to be a candidate school. And again, really excited about the work in our addition. And we continue to define our dual language model within the program. One of the big components of the program is that all students learn a second language. In our element and within our program, it's Spanish. And so at the elementary level in the IB program, students have inquiry units. There are 6 different units that are required by IB that are taught, but then you're able to use your local resources, local context to design those. And you can see some of them, who we are, how we express ourselves. These even apply when they go into art, music, PE. So PE, if we're working on sharing the planet, is also trying to incorporate that in their work as well. So the experience is common for students, that when they're in PE, it doesn't speak differently to what they're learning in math. And then also there's a big social emotional emphasis with the IB program. Those are the attributes that we teach really specifically. Students in morning meeting, through how we do positive praise, positive postcards, recognition of students. And that's a common language that's used again with our students, as well as when our staff is teaching those specifically. And you can see some kiddos working there. These are some of our in-student actual photos, which as we continue to grow the program are really exciting, because now it's our own students, not students that were in programs outside of RPS. Mr. Smith put this slide in. This one's really nice to see, because you can see Conklin's over the history and how there was big student mobility. Once we've implemented the program, which the first year would have been that 23 year and 24, you can see that significant decrease. Our kids want to be there, families are wanting to stay. We definitely have interest in wait lists, especially at middle school right now too, in addition to our elementary program, where parents, as they're starting to understand and see the success of the program, want their students to stay, which is obviously positive. Same thing, 23, 24, you can see drastic shifts in our attendance with our special programs attendance, also the buy-in desire to want to be at school and to be a part of the program and not to miss the things that the teachers are providing to students. This is the data at the very top. I won't go into all of them, but this was prior to the transition to IB when it was just traditional Conklin. You can see that it was targeted, and then you can see the score in the 30s. And then within 1 year's time, you can see, yes, it was still targeted, but the shift of the index score at the top of the house went into then it's 49.54. Attendance, we also saw a big shift, which was something else. And our preliminary data, which I can't release, is also trending really positively. So we're looking forward to coming back and sharing that with the board when we're able to do so. The goal next is we will continue to work on middle years program. Middle years program is middle school, plus it's also 9th and 10th grade. So we have to also start planning now, as Dr. Jarrett was saying, for implementation into the high school. There's going to be some steps that after this presentation that we'll need to start working on, whether it's creating curricular resources for the program. There will be some course proposals. We'll have to design some different courses for the high school roll-up. I'll have 2 stipends that will be posted this week for a coordinator that will be an REA member and an assistant principal that will work with myself and the IB staff at Conklin as a steering committee to design some of the courses. We'll do some site visits of other Illinois IB schools because we'll have to make sure we're meeting Illinois requirements for high school graduation. And then continuing to design the roll-up. We are looking that the program would roll up to East High School. We would do a year at a time. So starting in 27-28, we'd have a cohort of 90 to 100 students. Right now at Conklin, we have 3 strands. We have a dual language, one-way immersion strand and 2 monolingual strands. And so essentially those 3 strands at each grade level that now we have K-8 at Conklin, we'd roll up as 9th graders to East High School, and then we continue to roll up a grade level past that time year after year. And continue to move forward with the application process. The 11th and 12th grade becomes the final program of the IB continuum, which is the diploma program. So just again, because it's internationally recognized and there's schools all over the globe that have the program, it doesn't match our actual coding for how we code elementary, middle, high school, et cetera. That gives you a little indication of what types of experiences students have. So again, because since IB isn't just in Illinois and there's charter schools, parochial schools, public schools that are part of the consortium, you can see that they don't say you must teach this course, but rather when you get to the middle program that would be part of the high school rollout, it's so many hours of content time in those various areas. They continue to have a focus on teaching the whole child as well as the language component in addition to some of the requirements for Illinois, the math, the ELA, et cetera. So again, just a brief update. We're looking forward. I plan to go this week to East to meet with their teachers to give them a similar update to keep transparent communication about forthcoming. And we're really excited. East admin team is excited and really looking forward to another opportunity for serving our families and students in the community. But if there's any brief questions or quick questions at
and
this
again,
time.
I do want to offer during one-on-ones, if anyone would like to schedule time, I would be happy to bring Ms. Brenner in and we can walk through. This is really meant to just let you know what we're thinking a couple years down the road, because I think we've received some, justifiable concerns that sometimes it feels like we move too fast. So as this rolls up, I want to make sure we're being very transparent about what our latest thinking is, and would be happy to schedule time to talk through this. There's no action needed by the board tonight. This is just looking ahead. Now, I know you all read this in my weekly update, so this was probably very repetitive, but I thought this was a significant enough conversation that it would be good to have a formal presentation. So I apologize for the length tonight, but this is something that I think would be an important ongoing conversation, and we certainly will be coming back to follow up more thoroughly when Conklin presents, and I believe we're in the month of, did you say December? Yeah. So we're going to get through all of the student achievement presentations, and then Conklin will be doing a similar presentation. So we will not only have the one-on-one opportunities, but we'll be revisiting this multiple times.
I just have a brief question. One, thank you for coming and staying late to present to us. Just a fast question on East High School, so kind of how that was identified to be the school roll up into.
Yep, so one, obviously, Auburn as an example and comparative, they already have 2 special programs within the high school, both CAPA and gifted. So that obviously didn't make sense as far as ability, capability to roll out yet another program. Guilford, they're already dealing with struggles in relation to enrollment and just current student count. We also wanted to, historically, most of our students that are at Conklin IB are in the Northwest quadrant that were traditional, like Westview, McIntosh, Conklin students prior to the transition. So we also geographically wanted to keep somewhat near where a lot of the students live. It is open to students anywhere in the district, but that was our primary first group of students were the ones that were there, and they do have first in rights if they live within Northwest quadrant. So that was another reason, as well as working with Mike Phillips and team, and East has facilities, space, and capability to be able to roll up in relation to space as well.
And that was and the last piece was huge in this, and Mike could certainly jump in, but we're talking, I think East's enrollment is closer to 1,400, whereas Jefferson and Guilford are both north of 2,000, and Auburn has not only the 2 special programs that were mentioned, but also ROTC, so adding a 4th program. So certainly the board can give input, but that was our logic behind why East made the most sense, the geography and the fact that they have a lot of room.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions that I can help answer?
So Vice President Bennett answered or asked the same question I was going to ask, but I will also schedule a one-on-one, but it'll be before December. We got a full month next month, so between the 2, it may not be next week.
That's
but
okay.
I'm definitely going to.
Yeah, and if you want to come, we can always go to Conklin, visit some classrooms, walk around. I know Mrs. McCall, when I was there, took us up on that. So if you'd prefer to do that outside of just meeting with Dr. Jarrett, we can set it up in any fashion.
And that is an excellent idea. I'm behind schedule. I'm visiting Conklin anyway, so that'll be perfect.
Awesome.
We'll get that scheduled.
Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you, and I was going to comment. I've been to Conklin several times to see the new IB in action, and the kids love it. The staff love it. I think it's great. So continue the good work.
Thank you. Anything else? Again, thank you for your time. I appreciate it this evening. We look forward to coming back with my team in 2 months. So thank you again.
In honor of the World Series that's going on, we're going to go to Gustavo to be the closer for us here. So thank you for your patience. Normally, we are able to quickly highlight the students' comments, but I want to turn the floor over to our student representative.
Good evening. My name is Gustavo Ramirez, and I am a junior at Auburn High School. I want to begin first by commending the board and everyone else involved for the ongoing effort towards direct feedback from the community in regards to the search for a new superintendent. I think it is very valuable and meaningful to consider the needs specific to Rockford and its schools, and I would like to recommend a continuation of these efforts in future interviews and any other processes related to the search in the future. Secondly, I would like to urge the board to maintain the interest of the community as a whole in mind when considering their approach to the reestablishment of the school-based health center in Rockford. I understand it is a difficult and very detailed situation, but I do urge the board to consider these interests, especially in the manner of the timeline of the project. And lastly, I would urge the board to remain diligent and attentive in regards to legislation, specifically pertaining to the safety and well-being of students. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gustavo. Gustavo, thank you for your very carefully thought out reactions to the last meeting and this meeting, and I will close my remarks on those remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda provides the opportunity for board member discussion. Are there any board member comments, action steps, other business, new business, agenda recommendations, or any other matters to discuss? Ms. Pearson.
Yes, so can we get on the agenda sooner rather than later with an update regarding Handle with Care? Many of the board members were not on the board when that came into play. So an update and a refresher of a presentation would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that makes sense, and I think that would be maybe performance monitoring can fit that in on a committee of the whole day, maybe.
Yes, we actually have met last month as a committee to outline our calendar for the year. Hold one moment. and we discussed next month being in the superintendent's update, but I would be in support if we could do something bigger than that. I think it should be what Handle with Care is, what the process is, but also like a 2.0 and a 3.0, like the intervention piece, the response piece would be what I would be suggesting.
Yeah, maybe in December.
Yeah, performance monitoring, I suspect most of the meeting will be tied to our monitoring of our state performance on academics. So I will make sure we get that to our staff liaisons and work directly with the committee chairs to get the soonest possible date to get it to performance monitoring.
Thank you. That sounds good. Anyone else? Ms. Bennett.
Just one thing to add. Yesterday for work, yesterday was Monday, I was able to attend the Ed Red conference, so specifically to suburban school districts, and the Deputy Governor of Education and the Chair of ISB, as well as legislators, were a panel that presented. And it was really nice to hear like what our struggles are in Rockford Public Schools and what we continue to work on, and what our legislators are working on is also what the state is working on, what ISB is working on, like how all of the different institutions are all working together. And it made me feel very hopeful that we have like one unified voice in our state right now of protecting students, keeping students safe, how valued mental health is, how valued, they kept saying each and every student instead of all students, which I really liked, and I want to use that. And remember to say that, because it's very important that each of them receive what they need and we support them. So just gave me more hope that as a state, we got all of our kids back. So that's all.
Thank you. If there are no other board member suggestions or comments, I would take a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone. I think our committee of the whole is here next month. Thank you. Not at a school here.